Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My wife and I had just welcomed our second child into the world, and we were beyond excited to start a new chapter in our life. We found this perfect duplex in an amazing neighborhood. The kind with a beautiful playground and friendly faces everywhere. Or so we thought. The day we moved in, we made sure to introduce ourselves to everyone around. Most of our neighbors were younger folks, but they seemed decent enough. Well, that impression lasted exactly one day. The very next morning, we opened our door to find a 7-year-old kid sitting there with nothing but a bag of goldfish crackers and a hastily written note. Our upstairs neighbors had just left him there. On a school day, no less. I asked the boy where his parents were, and he simply replied that they had gone out and told him we would watch him. I looked at my wife, and we both knew we had to call Child Protective Services. This wasn't right, and it wouldn't be the last time we'd have to make that call. Our other neighbors were actually great people. There was this sweet old guy next door who fixed bikes as a hobby, and another neighbor who did woodworking. They'd often come over to see our kids, and their grandchildren would come play too. But they gave us a warning that we should have taken more seriously. The old neighbor warned us about the upstairs folks, telling us they were nothing but trouble. He described how there were people coming and going at all hours of the night, and the parties never seemed to end. And boy, were they right. It was like living under a nightclub that never closed. The noise was unbearable, and we had countless confrontations with them. During one of our many arguments, I tried asking them to keep the noise down because our small children were trying to sleep. The douchebag just told me to mind my own business and claimed they could do whatever they wanted up there. The landlord was absolutely useless. Every complaint fell on deaf ears. When we complained, he would just say there was nothing he could do if they were paying their rent. But karma has a way of showing up when you least expect it. One night, they came home in their red Mazda 3, and it looked like it had been through a demolition derby. They must have hit something or someone and run. That's when I decided to make a call to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Little did I know I was about to open Pandora's box. Turns out our lovely upstairs neighbor had a warrant out for drug trafficking. While all this was happening, my wife did some digging and found Entitled Woman on Facebook. A quick public record search revealed they owed a furniture rental company nearly $48,000 in stolen assets. They'd just taken off with everything: TVs, sound system, the works. The sheriff showing up with a moving truck was like watching justice in action. He announced that they had a court order to seize all rental properties belonging to Easy Home. The entitled woman immediately started protesting, claiming we couldn't take their stuff and that this was harassment. The sheriff was just doing his inventory when entitled woman lost it. She started yelling at him to get out of her house and tried to push him. That was a bad move, as the sheriff immediately arrested her for assaulting an officer. The whole time I couldn't help but think about their kid. We'd been feeding him whenever we could. Poor thing was always in the same tattered clothes, clearly neglected. When Child Protective Services came to take him, it was heartbreaking but necessary. Entitled woman too, the kid's mom, surprised us all though. After losing her son, she actually turned her life around, got clean, found a job, and worked hard to get her life back on track. I ran into her a couple years later at the grocery store. She thanked me, saying that what we did was the wake-up call she needed, and that she and her son were doing great now. I told her I was really glad to hear that and that it was all we ever wanted. The douchebag ended up getting extra charges when they found drugs in one of the seized dressers. Talk about karma. Entitled woman got 6 months for assaulting the sheriff, and we finally got some peace and quiet in our home, and our kids could finally sleep through the night. A year ago, I made what turned out to be the worst decision of my life, letting my friend of 17 years move in with me and my brother. My former friend had just returned from teaching in China for 3 years. He seemed different, more mature, and had even found someone he wanted to marry. I thought to myself, hey, we've known each other forever. and splitting rent 3 ways would help us all save money. Boy, was I wrong. The red flags started appearing almost immediately. Before even signing the lease, he crashed on my couch for 2 weeks, smoking all my weed without contributing a dime. Still, I brushed it off. We found a decent place near downtown, not the fanciest neighborhood, but the rent was reasonable, and we all had steady jobs. 3 months in, everything went downhill. My former friend barely left his room, spent $1,500 a month on weed, and had the audacity to accuse my brother and me of stealing from him because we occasionally shared a bowl. He had this cushy government job at a university summer camp, making $45,000 a year to basically do nothing 9 months out of the year. One day I tried talking to him about the situation. I politely asked if he could acknowledge my presence sometimes and maybe clean up after himself. His response was shocking. He called me insensitive, bringing up his fiancé's legal troubles overseas and claiming he couldn't handle my neediness. When I pointed out that I was just asking for basic courtesy, he dismissed me, saying he was under too much stress to deal with it. Things got even more complicated when his fiancée fled her country and moved in with us. Then they got married, adopted a puppy, violating our lease, and still paid the same rent while taking up more space. Meanwhile, my brother's girlfriend moved in because she was pregnant, and I was still paying a third of everything while doing most of the cleaning with her. When we finally told them we wouldn't be renewing the lease, all hell broke loose. He insisted they would just sublet from us indefinitely. When I told him that wasn't happening and we were moving out, he angrily declared they would stay and find new roommates themselves. We found a cheaper place and signed a new lease. Then my brother's girlfriend had her baby via C-section, and we started moving out during the pandemic. That's when our former friend completely lost it. He started screaming about how we were endangering their lives by moving during a pandemic and threatened to call the police if we tried to come back for our stuff. When I reminded him it was our house too and we needed to clean it to get our deposit back, he just hurled insults, calling us broke losers and threatening to make sure we never saw that deposit. We called the landlord, who revealed that we were the only ones who had actually paid the deposit in the first place. She agreed to return it all to us and even offered to escort us with police so we could get our remaining belongings. When our former friend realized he was now on the hook for $4,000 in rent for not giving proper notice, plus possibly losing his share of the deposit, his attitude completely changed. He started sending apologetic messages, begging us to talk things out. We didn't respond. He kept calling and texting, but we were done. His precious puppy that violated our lease threw up the socket had swallowed after days of stress. Now we're in our new place, paying less rent, and living with a newborn is actually more peaceful than dealing with that entitled man-child. The world might be crazy right now, but at least we're free from that nightmare of a living situation. I've been working at Adventure Kingdom theme park for about 3 years now. Started as a seasonal employee during college breaks, but I love the job so much I stayed on full-time after graduation. Most days it's actually pretty fun. I mean, who wouldn't want to work around roller coasters all day? But sometimes you get those guests who make you question your life choices. I operate the park's newest roller coaster, the Thunderbolt. It's one of those massive steel coasters with multiple inversions and a vertical drop. As operators, we rotate positions every hour to keep things fresh. Sometimes we're checking heights at the entrance, sometimes we're loading guests, sometimes we're unloading, and sometimes we're in the control panel. Today started like any other day. I was working the unload platform after rotating from the control panel position. My colleague had just moved to the load position after working height check. The sun was beating down and it was barely 1 p.m. when the incident happened. My colleague pulled me aside quickly between cycles and asked me to tell the lady in pink that she needed to put her bag in a locker, explaining that she had walked right past them at height check. I agreed to handle it. I approached the woman in pink who was already seated in the coaster with a pretty sizable shoulder bag. I politely told her that she would need to store her bag in a locker before riding. The woman immediately protested, pointing at my colleague and claiming they had told her she could bring her bag up. My colleague, who overheard this jumped in to defend themselves, stating that the woman had simply ignored them and walked past. The woman doubled down, insisting that my colleague had explicitly given her permission. My colleague repeated that they had tried to stop her, but she had ignored them. The woman continued to deny this, adamantly claiming my colleague had given her permission. I tried to explain that we never allow bags on the ride as it's a safety requirement. She refused to budge, complaining about her 45-minute wait time and declaring she wouldn't give up her spot. There was back and forth, and the other guests in line were getting restless, and I could feel my blood pressure rising. Finally, I'd had enough and called our supervisor, who was in the control panel with another operator. Our supervisor is this no-nonsense woman who's been working at the park for 15 years. She personally trained most of us and runs a tight ship. When she arrived at the platform, the woman tried the same story, accusing us of lying about the bag permission. Our supervisor shut that down immediately, explaining that she had personally trained us and knew we would never allow bags. She ordered the woman to get off the coaster, store her bag, and then return. The woman refused to move, claiming we couldn't make her leave. Our supervisor asserted her authority, but the woman demanded to speak to a manager, crying discrimination. Our supervisor then laid down the law, stating she didn't care what the woman thought had been said. Either she could store her bag in a locker or be escorted out by security. The woman's face turned as pink as her shirt. She looked around, probably hoping to find some support from other guests, but everyone was just staring at her with obvious annoyance. She tried one last time, ranting about how much money she'd spent on tickets. Our supervisor gave her the final ultimatum: store the bag and ride, or leave the park entirely. At this point, a security guard had already started walking up the exit stairs. My supervisor had discreetly radioed for backup while dealing with the woman. Seeing the guard, she finally unbuckled her restraint and stood up, but couldn't resist the final tirade. She threatened to report all of us, claimed she would have our jobs, and declared it the worst customer service she'd ever experienced. She stormed off down the exit ramp. She actually did try to complain to park management, but since we have cameras everywhere on the platform, they reviewed the footage and saw her blatantly ignoring my colleague at height check. I later heard that she was banned from the park for 6 months due to her behavior and for violating multiple safety protocols. Apparently, this wasn't her first incident that day. She'd already been warned at 2 other rides about the same issue. The rest of my shift was pretty normal after that, but I still can't get over the sheer entitlement of some people. Like, what makes someone think they're so special that basic safety rules don't apply to them? Just put your bag in a locker like everyone else. It's really not that complicated. I'm a 20-year-old college student who still lives with my mother, mainly because housing costs in our area are astronomical. My mom has always been controlling, to put it mildly. She's the type who needs to know every detail of my life, even things that should be private. She monitored everything: my phone, my friends, my schedule. When I started taking birth control at 16 due to irregular periods, she would literally watch me take the pill every morning. The medication caused me terrible migraines and mood swings, but she insisted I stay on it because that's what responsible young women do. Yesterday changed everything. I had gone to see my favorite band perform downtown. It was amazing, and for a few hours, I felt truly free. But that feeling didn't last long. When I got home, something felt off. You know that feeling when someone has been in your space? Like the energy is different? Well, my room had that vibe. My mother was waiting for me in the kitchen when I walked in. She asked about the concert in that fake sweet voice she uses when she's up to something. I gave her a brief answer, just telling her it was great. Then she tried to get me to go to my room to talk, but something felt wrong about that request. When I refused and asked why we couldn't talk in the kitchen, she claimed she wanted privacy for our conversation. I stood my ground and told her I was comfortable talking right where we were. She then pretended to care about how I was feeling lately, and when I told her I was fine, she showed her true colors. She demanded to see my birth control pills to prove I was taking them. My heart stopped. I knew right then she had gone through my things. my private belongings, my personal space. And worse, I knew she had found the pregnancy test. When I confronted her about going through my drawers, she just coldly stated that abortion isn't a form of birth control. The way she said it, cold, judgmental, without an ounce of concern for my well-being, made my blood boil. She didn't ask if I was okay, didn't offer support, didn't even acknowledge that she had violated my privacy. I demanded to know what gave her the right to go through my personal things. She pulled the classic "I'm your mother" card, claiming everything under her roof was her business. I reminded her that I'm an adult and she can't control my medical decisions. She then threatened me with her house rules, insisting I had to take the pills as long as I lived there. I told her I was done with both the conversation and her controlling my life. When I tried to walk away, she grabbed my arm and tried to tell me we weren't finished discussing this. I yanked my arm away, told her to never touch me again, and went straight to my room, locking the door behind me. She kept yelling through the door about responsibility and morality, but I turned up my music to drown her out. That night, I made 3 important calls. First, to my best friend, who offered me her spare room without hesitation. Second, to my bank to ensure my mother couldn't access my accounts. And third, to my doctor's office to confirm my upcoming appointments. This morning, while my mother was at work, I packed my essential belongings and moved in with my friend. I left a note telling her that her actions had consequences, and this was one of them. I also wrote that when she's ready to respect me as an adult and apologize for violating my privacy, we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. My phone has been blowing up with messages from her and flying monkeys she's enlisted. Aunts, cousins, family friends, all telling me I'm being dramatic and that a mother has a right to protect her child. But I'm not a child anymore, and what she did wasn't protection, it was control. I just finished unpacking at my friend's place. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. My medical decisions are my own, my privacy is respected, and my boundaries are clear. Sometimes the most entitled people in our lives are the ones who claim to love us the most. And sometimes the best response is to simply walk away. It's been a week now and I've already had my medical appointments. My friend has been incredibly supportive, even taken time off work to accompany me. My mother, on the other hand, has escalated her behavior. She's been showing up at my workplace trying to convince my co-workers to tell her about my schedule. My manager thankfully understood the situation and has banned her from the premises. Yesterday, she tried a new tactic. She contacted my university's administration, claiming she was worried about my mental health and needed access to my medical records. The university promptly told her that as I'm over 18, they legally can't share any information with her. When that failed, she started spreading rumors in our family group chat about how I'm troubled and need intervention. But here's the thing, her attempts to control me have only made me stronger. I've started therapy to work through the years of manipulation, and I'm learning that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. My aunt, my father's sister, who I haven't been close to in years, reached out privately to offer her support. She shared similar experiences with my mother and offered to help me navigate this new chapter of my life. I feel lighter. Despite all the drama, despite the constant messages and attempts to guilt me into coming back, I'm finally living life on my own terms. My health has improved since stopping the birth control pills that were making me sick, and I'm making decisions about my body without someone breathing down my neck. I guess it takes hitting rock bottom with someone to realize you deserve better, even if that someone is your own mother. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.